Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining our live webinar with me, none other than Felicity and guest, a child maintenance activist, also gender-based violence activist as well, and someone that's very relevant in our midst. Many people talk a lot, but she's someone that talks and she does something about it. And if she complains, she has a plan behind it. Felicity, welcome again. And how are you today?
Fine, thanks. So I don't know how loud it is, but I think it might be a bit loud. I'm just turning the volume down. I'm good, thank you. Other than loving this summer, but it's a bit overwhelming today, but I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, today is a bit
How
hot.
are you?
I am very well, thank you. It's extremely hot in town. You put the air conditioner on, it still feels warm. It's better just to be at the beach, I would say so.
Absolutely.
Felicity, let's get down to the topic. We have some technical issues. Therefore, we're starting about 10 minutes late. Felicity, there's been a lot of development, a lot of stuff. You had to be. Were you on TV yesterday? On CTV? Last night, yes. I want to hear about that. I could not watch that show, but tell me what's the latest developments? What is happening? Let's deal with that.
Okay, so I saw a whole lot of press releases done by the Department of Justice, making this huge big announcement and all the fanfare about them tracking and tracing defaulters. So I was on 567 giving comment, and then I was on Cape Town TV also giving comment on it, and then there's an article coming out shortly on Parent 24 where I elaborated a bit more. So the way that they've announced it is that they're giving the impression that this is a new development, okay, and that they can track and trace via Cipro, cell phone companies, property, car registration, and I'm going, what the hell? You're supposed to have been doing this, particularly since 2018, when this amendment was promulgated. So they've done nothing really for 3 years. And when I say they've done nothing, that is the evidence on the group, because when the maintenance investigator says that he doesn't have capacity to do all these investigations, he's overwhelmed, and the onus is often put on the complainant to do all the tracking and tracing. So so they should have been doing this for 3 years. So maybe now they've got a policy and a directive in place that this has got to be done. But my question is, again, so they track and trace and they bring them to court, and then what?
Exactly, that's a question. What happens then?
Because that is where the biggest problem happens, because not all of them are not traceable. The ones that are traceable and that appear in court, in the press release, they're talking about it being in the best interest of the child, and the child's got to get their money, but getting the person to court is not getting them their money. We know this. So all I want to know from them is, once you've got them in court, what is going to be different to what is the status quo at the moment?
Now, Felicity, it seems to me that the press, they think these new developments, but there are no new developments. It's always been there. You're 100% right. And there's a dog, the amendment to the Maintenance Act. We dealt with it quite in depth in the past, but the dog still has no teeth. You're right. They bring them to court. They make use of all these creative means that was always in existence in the past. It has always been there. But the question is, will the result be different? I don't think the results will be different. I think government needs to buy bigger into the situation, not what they're doing now. This like recycling old things. You know what I mean? This thing was hyped a few years ago, and now all of a sudden they're hyping it again.
Well, I recently did a post where I said it's become malignant. The whole maintenance procedure and the maintenance courts has really become, or it has been malignant. It hasn't become, it is malignant. And when I say that, it means just like a cancer, that there needs to, you need a team. And you need to strategize what is the best remedial action for this. because we've got to, we need all sorts of interventions, and we need everybody on board so that this can become the way that it's intended to work. And until then, I don't really know what is going to change, and that for me concerns me. And government or the Department of Justice is just silent. It's wonderful if they're working on things and they're having strategic meetings, and I understand that they don't want to create expectations, but as the public, and that this affects so many people, I think we have a right to know what they are doing, what they're not doing, what they intend to do. We need to know, because this can't continue, because it's just like a malignant cancer. Something is going to die off very soon. It's going to become terminal.
And in my view, the problem with maintenance are that the maintenance process for individuals are not long lived. I mean, once the child turns 18 years old, self-supporting, or the parties move on, then they are done. They enter the system. Then a new batch of people comes back into the system. The question which you can pose to me, and honestly pose to me, is for the last, I've been practicing maintenance family law over 15 years. And for the last 15 years, can I honestly say that there has been any strides, other than paper strides, where the laws are amended and so on? Has there been any positive strides in the system that can assist people, that will actually assist and have assisted people in enforcing the maintenance claims, getting maintenance, and so on? I would honestly say I cannot see that. It's unfortunate, it's sad that I have not seen the maintenance laws having developed. I've seen development in technology. Of course, we're doing this via Zoom today, you somewhere else and I'm somewhere else, and we're streaming it live. I've seen that type of changes in the world. However, I failed to see any changes regarding child maintenance enforcement and people being successful in the claims for child maintenance. What I have also seen also, people are now deciding to take matters into their own hands, in the sense of forget about the dad. I'm not claiming maintenance from the dad. I'm to empower myself because the system is failing me. And the same problems I've heard about 15 years ago is the same problems I'm hearing today. New clients, new people in the system, same problems.
So the problem with that is that we know that mothers are superheroes, okay? But we, by doing this continuously, by taking it upon ourselves for various reasons, we're just enabling the men who don't support their children. We're perpetuating the myth that only mothers can have to contribute and sustain. And although there's not a link for co-parenting, we know this. There's a definite correlation between paying and maintenance. It's almost like it's an investment. So if I'm going to pay maintenance, then somehow I want to return on my investment and I want to see the child. That might be the wrong way to look at it. But the good thing about that is that the child does have some kind of a relationship with the father. Maybe not always healthy, but that fits into the Children's Act. But so they are interlinked. But some way or the other, we have to interrupt this normalization that mothers will do it on their own, that they will go and take 1, 2, 3 jobs or whatever. But if a mother is going and getting 3 jobs, what is it doing to her physical well-being? And how much time does she really have to spend quality time with her children? So is it she's sustaining the physical needs of the child, but is there really time to mentor, to do all the things that we as parents ideally should and would like to be doing with our children? I hear it so often from mothers that they get home and they're exhausted, and then they rush around, do the chores that they need to do so that they can get on to the next job. And then they fall into bed, tomorrow morning, start all over again. So, and if they've given up, well, then mentally they can get their heads around it because they've resigned that this is up to me. I believe that it perpetuates the status quo. But if she's still in the process and this is what she's doing to be able to support her child, this is where the resentment builds up because of the burden placed on the primary caregiver. So when you get to court, you can't expect mothers not to be emotional. Well, I'm going to say mothers because we know it's the majority. You can't expect that parent not to be emotional about it, because there's a physical toll, there's an emotional toll, there's a psychological toll, because the burden is placed on the primary caregiver to enforce the child's rights, yet they are not supported. There's no protection for them in the system. And in my opinion, they're just victimized by the system. So yes, of course. So, when people get there, they're ratty and they take it out on new partners. The new partner might be wanting to assist because they can't talk, but it's like, don't you come into this now? Of course, it's an emotional thing. And I think that because what's happening in the maintenance court, it's actually a breeding ground for this aminosity that exists in this space. And if they got things in place, it would take away that emotional labor in trying to uphold the child's rights.
Now, what I'm listening to you, and I agree with you. The problem we have is that people are getting despondent in the maintenance court system. They're taking things into their own hands, but that's not necessarily in the child's best interest. It wears out the mother. Government is abdicating their duties, and maybe that's what government is planning on doing. They say, no, let's keep things the way they are. It's okay, and if you have a problem with the system, don't make use of the system. Go somewhere else. Government needs to obviously buy into the system to fix this problem. Felicity, in all honesty, systems have to be in place. I agree with you. The very least, if somebody does not want to pay child maintenance, there should be some tax on that specific person. There should be some type of, like overseas, where there's a minimum amount that people have to pay child maintenance. If the party does not pay the child maintenance, the government steps in, and later on, the person will have to repay the government. These type of things must be in place. But I cannot understand the scenario whereby the child requires child maintenance, the father has the potential to pay the child maintenance, and who's being prejudiced here? Clearly the minor child, not the father. Child turns 18 years old, gets a degree, goes to university on the mother's hard sweat and hard work. Who's the first person to say, oh, my child is an engineer, my child is a professional, a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever the case may be? You'll be the one saying, but the mother was the one that done all the specific work. Obviously, I'm not referring to everyone. There are many good examples where parties cannot afford to pay and they try their best to pay, but that is the reality of the matter. And government needs to step up and fix the social evil that's in our midst.
Sure, because these. And I've really been paying particular attention when I'm coaching people or the comments on the group, and there is this general, and when I say that the women are not supported, and I have to assume that it's because they don't understand, and that the inherent patriarchal culture that the whole legal system is built around, and the social constructs, is not acknowledged and spoken about, and doesn't equate to all the gender discussions and laws and everything else that the government talks about. Because women will not be equal until there is economic equality. And maintenance is very obviously something that affects that directly, because if a mother is carrying the whole financial responsibility, she is economically disadvantaged. So, I'm paying particular attention to certain laws. So, for example, a case goes to court, and it's, first of all, let's look at the perfect scenario. So he notices served and he appears. That's 3 months, okay? And the child can be of any age. And we know, I'm picking up that the average age is around about 6 or 7, okay, that people do a lot of first-time applications. So for the past 6 years, it's either been nothing or intermittent. So they both are now in court. Paternity is accepted, so there's no dispute. So that's since the application has taken 3 months. But now he hasn't brought all these documents, or the prosecutor is possibly ill, or the maintenance officer is ill, or the whatever. And it's postponed for another 3 months, okay? And then it might be resolved then, or can be. So for all of this time, there is no financial support. And we know that part of those amendments in 2018 was interim support. But even so, if interim, I believe that interim support, interim maintenance should be mandatory, obviously if all the legal requirements are met, because there's no back pay. So if it takes 12 months to resolve an issue, either somebody's applied for a reduction, a first-time application, a reduction, or whatever it is, they don't get backdated. So there's this whole vacuum of no financial support. And then it's like, now, okay, now we have a court order. So then they start paying from that court order. Even in garnishee, so if a garnishee order is issued, it takes anything up to 3 months for a garnishee order to become effective. So already you're 3 months in arrears. Who carries that vacuum? It's the primary caregiver. So I'm thinking, this is crazy. So why aren't interim orders mandatory from the get-go?
Now, Felicity,
Or they have to backdate it either to the, and we know that this is allowed or included in the Maintenance Act, it needs to be backdated to when the child was born. But, and I know, and I can just like see it in my head. They go, oh, but shame, we can't do that. What happens if they don't have? We can't suddenly retrospectively, but these 99% of these people knew they had a child from the day their child was born. So it shouldn't be a surprise that they should be held responsible from the day the child was born. So all of these things are disenfranchise the woman and the child, and it puts them at huge risk because there's no certainty attached to anything. That's so if there was, so I think it can only be because they don't understand this, that they don't see how this impacts negatively on the primary parent.
Now, Felicity, you made some interesting points regarding the duration of the maintenance process. If I compare it to the High Court application or divorce Rule 43 application in the High Court, for example, those matters are finalized very quickly, and those are interim orders, and the judges make those orders extremely fast based upon limited amount of information. You file your affidavit as a mother or the father, depending who the party is, and you stipulate, this is my income, these are my expenditure. The other party gets an opportunity to do exactly the same. The court hears arguments, makes a robust decision, and the court deals with about 10 of those applications sometimes in one day. It could be much more. Same with the divorce court and so on. So it's easier, it must be more effective for a couple, for someone who's married to somebody, to go to the divorce court and easily get into the maintenance order in place. 1, 2, 3, after 2 months they get the order. Whereby in the maintenance court, the actual creature of statute that's supposed to deal with maintenance matters on a regular basis, they have the infrastructure in place. The High Court deals with many other matters as well. I mean, thousands of other matters. And they are so inefficient in finalizing these interim orders. The maintenance court should take a very robust approach. Yes, and the amendment, Felicity, 100% right. The amendment does allow for the court making interim maintenance orders. They can make that. And even if the parties had an agreement in the past regarding maintenance, the maintenance court can make that specific agreement and order of court, an interim order. So these are the challenges which I see the maintenance courts have, because here we have another vehicle, the divorce courts, that deals with divorce matters, trials all the time, and unopposed divorces all the time, super busy, just as busy as the maintenance court, and the High Court dealing with super important matters, serious matters. All matters are serious, but you know where I'm going to with this. But they expedite into the maintenance orders very fast. And you can, within 6 weeks or within 2 months' time, you can have your into the maintenance order in place. And many times those orders are much more than what a party will get in the maintenance courts, because the courts take a robust approach. Very concerning to me, Felicity. That's all I have to say at this moment.
Yeah, but again, I hate being like Mrs. Debbie Downer. But even in High Court, I mean, if you get a Rule 43 interim order or Rule 58, I'm seeing so many people that are battling to enforce those, because they still essentially have to go to the maintenance court if the person defaults on those.
No, Felicity, you can execute it in the court itself, a warrant, because it's a liquidated amount of money. So if the maintenance amount is 1,000 rand per month, and the person hasn't paid for 5 months, 5,000 rand is liquidated, they can issue a warrant of attachment against his assets. So, but Felicity, but what I'm comparing, where I'm going to with this point is, yes, there could be difficulties also if there's nothing to attach. Put it that way. Um, what I find difficult is what I advise many of my clients, depending on the case, on the circumstance of the matter, if it's possible, go to the High Court in a divorce matter, of course, because you'll get quicker results than going to the maintenance court. So let's say a client comes to me, Mr. Abduroaf, I would like to get divorced. That's fine, no problem. But I would like to obtain some interim financial assistance from the other party. Should I go to the maintenance court? Yes, it's free of charge. Go there. But most probably you'll wait there a year or two. I don't know how long. In the High Court, we can file both applications, the Rule 43 application and the divorce paperwork at the same time. Within 2 months' time, we will have an interim maintenance order. Put it that way.
No, I hear exactly what you're saying. It's just that there is not, in my experience, and my research, that this has to start at the top, and that is like from the highest person. And I'm going to say, I'm sorry, but it has to be the president. He appoints his ministers, but here essentially the Minister of Justice and the Deputy Minister. Do they really know? And if they do and nothing is happening, then I have to say they don't care, quite frankly. It's as simple as that. If they do care, what is the plan? And why are they not engaging with civil society as well to find solutions to this? Because we're the people that are impacted by it. So yeah, so I was on, when I was on 567, I was with Josephine Petter. She was the first person that commented. And I met Josephine. I had a 2-hour meeting with Josephine in Pretoria. I think it was 2018. And anyway, I'm not gonna obviously say everything that we discussed, but I got the impression that when people within the system work there, when they raise pertinent objections or issues like this, they are shut down in some way or the other, and they kind of feel disenfranchised from within. That they almost like the only people, the impression I got, not just from them, but over the years, that we have to continue putting pressure onto a state organ that just impacts on millions and millions. And I think for me, it's always, if this was 1,000 people, we can go, okay, really to spend so much resources for the benefit of 1,000 people when we have a population of nearly 60 million doesn't make economic sense. But this impact, I would have a guess, if you look at, we know that there's 11 million children on a SASSA grant, we know that. Okay, and we know that that is determined by an absolute minimal income. So that's 11 million children, and how many mothers? Let's be conservative and say 9 million mothers. I mean, we're really looking at almost a third of the population. And for me, that means that it's serious enough to seriously commit to this and changing it. And I believe that it will immediately eradicate a whole lot of other impacts. That's poverty. It will improve education. It will improve the ability for the primary caregiver to go and look for work because there's a little bit more disposable income. And I think that we'll see improvements in malnutrition in children. We'll see less girls falling pregnant and falling out of, dropping out of school. The impacts are enormous, and we can't. So that's why I'm so passionate about this, because I see the layered impacts everywhere, and then also on gender-based violence. Because if these matters aren't resolved, whether it's in High Court or in family court, in maintenance court, it becomes this very powerful tool to coerce, manipulate, punish, whether it's a simple thing like if there is a fixed amount and the person pays every month, but they don't pay on time every month. So they might pay just before the end of the month, or they might pay on the 10th, and it affects debit orders. And do I need to phone him because I'm just going to get abused when I phone? It will eliminate a whole lot of those things. So the layers are very, there's many layers, and they run very deep, and we can't deny. So I believe, one, it just will address so many things and eliminate, and we can progress a lot further. It's a basic fundamental in our society.
Felicity, I'm with you. Felicity, we have two comments. I need to maybe do justice to those comments. So the first comment is from a gentleman. He says, no need for this if fathers are not alienated. So this is where I'm going to with this view. Yes, I agree very much that there are many fathers who wants to support their minor children. They want to be involved in the child's life. And the mother is truly alienating the father from the minor child. That is a legitimate case. I mean, I see it all the time. But the general thing is there is a problem within the system, and there needs to be maintenance courts in place where there are many fathers who does not want to pay child maintenance. It's a reality. So even if that mother does not alienate the father, these fathers have contact all the time. They have, unlimited access to the minor kids, but they do not want to support the minor child. It's two different things. You want to be a part of the child's life. You want to be part of the child's life, but at the same time, you do not want to support the child. I have no doubt that the Pacific commenter, he loves his kids and wants to be involved in the child's life, etc., and is being alienated from the mother. That's unfortunate. But the general thing is we need to fix the problems within the system. And those few exceptions of people who are being alienated because of child maintenance and so on, that is unfortunate. But we need to work towards something, getting this problem resolved, where people are not getting child maintenance. Felicity, one more comment from a lady. If I might just read it out, say maybe you can comment on that one, Felicity. I commented on the first one. Defaulters get chances all the time in maintenance and criminal courts, and we still have no garnishment or annulment orders. And men use the excuse, I am unemployed. So here we have a direct opposite type of comment, where the mother is saying, defaulters, the father's being defaulted and defaulting all the time, and the courts basically do nothing where that is concerned. So that is a truly problematic issue. Any comment on that?
Well, that's what I alluded to earlier, where these things are definitely interconnected, and so I understand why mothers withhold the child from their father, and and there's several reasons why. One, it's because they're not aware of the law and that it's actually a criminal offense to withhold. That's the one thing. The other thing is that eventually, and it's not something that is done up front, the child eventually being withheld is a result of a series of events. And that is either no maintenance or ad hoc maintenance, then the threats because suddenly you're going to maintenance court and they go, no, don't. And you go, well, I'm going to because I've got no other options. Then there's now increased animosity because now you're being hauled to court, and that's taken often as like a threat or as a challenge. I go, well, watch me now. Now you're going to get nothing, or you're going to get as little as possible, or I'll resign from my job. It becomes punitive, but it's really to protect the child. So you go through all of that, and then the maintenance payer will follow through on what he's promised. So people who don't really understand the law or who are just so wrapped up emotionally go, well, then I'm sorry, but you don't get to see your child every weekend because I've got to sustain the child in order for you to be Disney dad. Come along and take him for the weekend, but you're not committed to all the other responsibilities, and financial is part of those responsibilities. And I see that is often, and yes, it's incorrect to use the child in that way, but as I say, it's people often who either are not aware that it's illegal, and two, actually just don't care anymore because they are so frustrated and they've had enough. Not right, but that's why I believe that if there's proper enforcement, where there's less grey areas, that's it. It takes a whole lot of the conflict out of it because the burden is placed on the primary caregiver to bring up the child, negotiate, do all the emotional labor to try and get, and then you almost get like a kick up the butt anyway. And then you've got to start the whole process all over again. So that's what I talk about, how malignant it's become, because it gives rise to all of these secondary things. And that for me is like critical that we get it sorted because it will prevent all of this stuff. And the other thing is that parents need to go for counseling. You know, I'm sorry, and I see this often where a person goes, oh yeah, but I've been alienated from my kid. Yes, you have been. But what part in this have you played? You can't just sit there and go, I've done nothing. Have you approached the children's court to enforce your rights? Are you really taking responsibility in every way for your child? Are you really putting your emotions aside so that you can co-parent? It's one thing just sitting there, because it's almost a sense of entitlement again. It's wonderful to easily give up and walk away. And this I say to the mothers as well, who go, and you heard me earlier, so I'll go and get 3 jobs, but I'll do it on my own. Let's do that. Just like the fathers go, I can't deal with the emotion, and they walk away. So whose fault is that? If you really want to do what's right, then you put in the effort to do what's right. Children are being abandoned because grown-ups can't be emotionally mature and sort this stuff. Oh yeah, but she's too difficult or he's too difficult. Yes, we are all difficult. We're all friggin' traumatized by this malignancy that's been going on for so long.
Felicity, what I'm picking up from the conversation and the last few weeks of conversation, our dialogue is changing a bit. It's more like getting people to start, doing things with themselves, self-help. I've noticed our tone in our previous webinars since the start of the lockdown was basically advising people, dealing with advice. But I see more passion coming from both of us, and from you as well, which I'm seeing now. People, the government, the law, it's there to assist us, but it can only assist us so much. We need to take stock of ourselves. We need to start doing self-help and start taking ownership of our specific matters and do something about it. So Felicity, I like that. I won't comment further what you said. I agree with you with you in that regard. There's a further comment regarding the 2 type of scenarios we're dealing here with. Many people, when they deal with child maintenance matters, it's the only legal matter they deal with. And the impression on the legal system is unfortunate that it only applies to them, and this is based upon their specific experiences, but it does not mean that the entire legal system works that way. As you could see from the last 2 comments, and thank you for the 2 comments, we have two opposite, conflicting views, and that's the reality. I mean, if I only done 1 court case and that court case turned out bad, I might say, Felicity, your child maintenance matters are extremely difficult. You can't win your case because I only done 1 of that. But I've done many of that, and I can tell you some are good, some are bad. Sometimes the maintenance courts make proper decisions, and sometimes they do not make proper decisions. And I can say that because previous maintenance matter, we appealed it, and the High Court said, they didn't do a proper job. So we can say that. Felicity, I like the issue concerning self-help. Tell me more about that. What attitude must the people have? How must they deal with the specific maintenance matters in trying to get some type of results? Must they bang on the doors? Must they make a noise? Email onto the top? What is your advice?
Okay, so I mean, when I work one-on-one with people, and this is, I work mostly with women, but I do work with a few men, is I explain to them that if you lean into this process, that you will emerge from it fundamentally a better person, okay? And it's got nothing to do with the maintenance court, because the maintenance court is still going to be dysfunctional. The big difference is your mindset going into this, and that's what will determine how you come out of it. Very much like COVID. So you can buy into all the conspiracy theories about COVID. You can become completely debilitated, and then you lose your job, and that affirms everything, and you can just lie down and die, Or you can go, okay, I'm going to work on my head. If I can't get a job or whatever, the least I'm going to do is I'm going to work at staying positive. I've got some time now, and I can work on me, because my headspace will determine how I get out of COVID when we do get back to some sense of a new normal or normality. Because then I've got a head start on all of those others that have been completely emotionally debilitated by the whole lockdown and the pandemic. So that's my attitude and my advice going into this stuff, okay? What do you have control over? The only thing you got control over is yourself. So that goes about understanding yourself, understanding that emotions have no place in court. That means that, why are you being triggered? What is it? Why are you resisting court? Why do you burst into tears when you're at court? Working through that stuff. Understanding that it's not personal. that the maintenance officer does not have a personal issue with you. The maintenance officer, if you take a male, he comes with his own bias. Whether he likes it or not, he brings it into his workplace. If you understand his bias, you won't get triggered by it, because you understand that you're born into exactly the same social constructs. So you understand, and you can very much like guide the process, because then you can go, can we just go back to the maintenance, that section of the Maintenance Act? I appreciate your opinion, but can we go back to them instead of becoming emotional? Because if you don't understand all of these things, then your stomach gets into a knot, you start sweating, your heart starts beating fast, then women cry so easily, and then the tears start coming. And then, what is the social construct about angry, bitter women? They're emotional, and they drama queens. Okay, so it's like, so are we really drama queens? No, we have emotions that we need to be processing, and only we can because we can't change what other people say and do. Doesn't matter who it is and what situation. All we have control over is how we are going to respond to this. So how are you going to respond when the maintenance officer says this, when the father of the child says this or does that? How are you going to respond to this? Are you going to buy into the stereotyping? No. And then it's, so there's a lot more preparation when you go there, and you have far more input into determining how this case is going to go and what the result is going to be. And in some way, I mean, I've had a few moms who go, well, at the end of the case, because I changed my whole strategy and thinking, at the end of the case, we were actually like talking to each other in the corridors, which we haven't done for a very long time. But it also gives me, it's because men, we know, is shut down emotionally. And men can be even more vicious than women in terms of going straight for the jugular. And so that, you know, it's all of these responses. So if you take some control over your own behavior, your own thinking, and in any win is a win, doesn't matter how small it is. So if you haven't had maintenance for 2 years and you suddenly get interim, might not be ideal, but it's a win. And we build on our successes. We can go back again. So I use all of these things like in my coaching, and these are life skills. I mean, with some I go a lot deeper, because I mean, and I go into things like ancestral trauma, and I go into the mother and the father wound, because what is our modeling? We perpetuate our modeling, you know, what we were exposed to. So it depends who the client is and the understanding and how the session goes. I mean, I even go deep into those things. So, and that's where I believe that the women that I work with emerge much better, and they acquire an understanding and skills that they can use in every other aspect of their lives.
Sorry, Felicity, having said that, I honestly believe that what you can impart to someone in dealing with a child maintenance matter is invaluable. Many people, they walk alone, they go to the maintenance court on their own. Some of them have legal representation, but the legal representation is quite cold, for lack of a better term. And sometimes you do not need a lawyer specifically. You need someone like yourself, you know, to motivate the person, to advise the person, to guide the person, tell the person about the process, and also how to be successful in the process. And I agree with you 100%. If you go into a maintenance matter or any legal matter for that case, with a certain mindset, a more of a negative mindset, I am advising you the results will be very bad. Because I've experienced the opposite, in the sense of I see a very weak case, a very difficult case, something worthwhile fighting for, but the case is extremely difficult. But if your mindset is positive and you go there very positively, the results turns out very well. And if the results do not turn out that very well, it's fine, because you gave it your best go, but the result is much better than it would have been the other way. Imagine now going to those specific cases on a negative way. You know, the papers are not in our favor, the judge is a male judge or a female judge, the other party got a more senior advocate. You know, we're just going to court with a mouthful of teeth. you will not get the results you want. But many times, Felicity, in the legal system, I'm not only applying to myself, and many of my clients as well who could not afford legal representation, but they were motivated either by me or someone else, or like yourself, a coach. They have come back and say, you know what, I done extremely well, because the other party, Felicity, does not have that type of coaching, does not have that type of assistance, that psychology. What do they say? A football match, or a cricket match, or a rugby match, when is it won? It is won in the changing room before the match. When the coach comes, the coach tells them, guys, today's the day, we're gonna make it happen. Let's go out there. Then they win. But if the coach comes there, let's see what happens, try our best, stay alive, stay safe. They will lose because the other party, they had the proper coaching. So Felicity, thank you for that. And I know you offer that service. People can contact you via those details on our screen. But moving on, I like our dialogue now. Our dialogue is now self-help, make it happen, and own your case.
Yeah, and not just that, but what is empowerment, Mohammed? Empowerment is getting knowledge and using it. It's one thing, like if you can acquire all the knowledge that you want about anything, and if you're not going to take any kind of action, it means nothing. It's still a concept. So it's about empowerment, is about getting the knowledge and then practicing it. And when you do that, what happens? You are able to empower other people. Because if you go to a maintenance court and you're sitting there, there's 20 other people there. You can have conversations with them. You can share some of your insights and wisdoms with them. And so we can, in so many ways, we can bring about like a much bigger, greater, quicker change in some aspects of this. Yeah, because I do get angry. Again, anger is an emotion. We can't pretend that anger is not an emotion. But what do you want to do with that anger? How do you want to channel your anger? So even if it's like whether it's co-parenting or the whole maintenance thing, how are you going to channel your anger? How are you going to channel your frustrations? Are you going to let that become that you self-combust, or do you want to channel it in a way that becomes effective, that makes things happen and makes the light burn brighter? I'm trying not to be too esoteric or anything, but we determine that, and that takes mindfulness. For me, I didn't have this guidance going through like my whole journey, and it's through my own growth and my own work on myself that I realized that the difference that it made for me, but also just seeing the patterns, and going, okay, well, geez, like the way that my mother parented and my mother not getting maintenance, geez, she had 3 jobs. She had 3 jobs at some stage. My mother was never at home. So what do? When I had the opportunity to be a stay-at-home mom, that's what I did, which was the polar opposite of what my mom did, because she was never there. We were 4 girls, and we just, besides having a lot of the responsibility, we were all over, and particularly me. So I wanted to change that because I didn't have it. So how does that impact on me? At the end of my marriage, I don't have an income. Okay, so I use that knowledge, and that's based on my mother. That's based on role modeling, maybe the opposite end of the pendulum, but it has a lot to do with my mother and her circumstances. And my mother made those decisions based on her circumstances, observing her mother. That's the ancestral trauma that we, and men also have it. Obviously, my interest is just particularly women. And these things influence the choices that we make every single day about everything. And it's important. We don't think so, but it is important. And if we want to change, we have to stop perpetuating it onto our children.
Well, it's the interesting points you have made over there. I never knew that your parents also separated. But Felicity, you're quite young, and you've gone through it very well. So that's awesome. Felicity, I think the dialogue must change in this country, like women liberation, apartheid movements and so on. The moment the mindset changes from the consumer in this specific regard, we're dealing with the parents applying for child maintenance, they should stop accepting the system as it is. The system is flawed, it's slow, it's one of those old type of operations. Everything else is moving very fast, modernizing and so on, but the systems are extremely slow. And parents should stop accepting the system. They need to have a mind change. They must believe if someone says I'm going to the maintenance court, the other party must get scared because the system is efficient. Hypothetically, they must be afraid. So under those circumstances, I think we need a revolutionary change. People need to start standing together. And when we say we're going to the maintenance court, the other party must get super afraid, and the maintenance court must be the most efficient vehicle in our legal system, because it deals with food and clothing for the minor child. If someone tells me, sir, I want to apply for a reduction in child maintenance because I lost my job, I say, sir, do you have a car? Sell a car, feed your child. How can you drive a car, put petrol in the car, and a child at home is hungry and doesn't have clothes? I can't see the logic behind that. I don't want to see a person like that. I don't want your money. You leave my office, you go somewhere else. But if the person says, I'm paying the child maintenance, I'm paying the child support, I'm doing what I have to do, and he drives a Ferrari, 10 Ferraris, I'm the happiest person on earth for him, because he's fulfilling his obligation, whatever he has to do. So we need to have a change. I think women, if you're watching this video, stand up. Men, stand up, whatever the case may be, and don't let the Department of Justice renege in the obligation to provide efficient legal services, and at the same time upholding the best interests of the minor child.
Sure. So I think this is where it's important. I don't know who else does it, but with the rape cases in the Western Cape, that there was like a police watch body, and they were going to cases and they were monitoring these cases to see what happened. I don't know who does this in the maintenance courts, okay? But our exercise last year with the garnishee orders that were not being paid taught me like a lot, because so I'm going to be monitoring this, and I'm going to hold them accountable, because they came out, besides the fact they should have been doing this for 3 years, they came out with all this pom-pom and ceremony and fanfare about, woohoo, look at us. So I have the ability to monitor that on the group. I mean, I think I could monitor every single court in the country on the group. So I'm going to be monitoring that, and I'm going to be collecting that data so that we can hold them accountable. Because we go, okay, but this maintenance officer or this maintenance investigator at that court, I mean, you can imagine how big this spreadsheet is going to be. But anyway, we'll pick up the problem areas, just like we did with the garnishee orders. We'll immediately be able to pick up where are the problem areas. Are they being trained? They're not enforcing this. And that's what we can do. That's what civil society can do. We're not as powerless as we think we are, but it does take effort, and we need to collectively work together.
Yeah, Felicity, if you look at the COVID-19 laws that were put in place, when the government said you can't go on the beaches were empty, zero. There was only sand on the beaches, because the government and the law came and it says don't do that, and police obviously patrol the areas, and it was enforced. Now, why it works with certain type of things, like not going to the beach, not wearing a mask, but why not when it comes to feeding a child? When it comes to alimony, I'm not much of an alimony fighter. I mean, I don't get much alimony work. Personal maintenance where ex-husband and spouses fight over money. I deal with it on a divorce basis. But when it comes to child maintenance, food and clothing, they were quick to arrest a surfer with respect. I mean, the law must be followed. Surfer for going to the ocean alone and surfing, or someone jogging on the beach on the sand alone at 2 o'clock in the morning, or whatever time after the curfew. But when it comes to a maintenance defaulter, it's there. You can see it. There's proof. The bank account is not being paid. Nothing generally happens. It takes long. There's a system. There's a procedure. Where if you're on the beach during lockdown, what happens? They arrest you immediately. They process you very fast, and that needs to happen with child maintenance defaulters.
Sure, and most of us stayed away from the beach. So if there are consequences for maintenance defaulters, we would not have the problem. And why have people complied? Because they are scared they're going to be arrested. It's as simple as that.
Or they can't swim to the other side of the beach. So I get into the water, they see the police at the shore, I swim to the other side. They can't swim so well, so they know.
No, but the bottom line, it comes down to they didn't want to be arrested. None of us wanted to be arrested. So, there was no alcohol. We didn't travel with alcohol. I mean, and there is a small percentage that won't care. But the majority of people are law-abiding citizens, but it comes back to this thing, is that the whole maintenance thing is malignant. It's become so normalized. And I will reiterate, I don't think there's political will. And I don't say whether that is mischievous or through not knowing any better. But whatever it is, there is no political will, because if there was, we would see radical enforcement transformation within the way that the courts work. And I honestly believe that our president doesn't really understand this, and I don't believe our Minister of Justice does. And I just want to have a cup of tea with him. Like, I just want to have a casual conversation to inform him and to share with him some of the things, because I think if they really knew, then there would be a different approach from the top, all the way from the top. I don't think our president doesn't care about maintenance or children. I think he does. I think he's misinformed and not informed enough.
Felicity, if I look at the system, the tools are there. That's where I'm going to. There's a maintenance officer, there's a maintenance court, there's a maintenance magistrate. The tools are there. There's no need to get more tools. We need to get the tools to be used properly. The maintenance officer will still work from 8 till 5 or 8 till 3, whatever the time is. He will still work the amount of hours he works per month. Everybody will still do whatever they are doing. There needs to be a mindset change. People need to do their jobs, and then the results will come. Felicity, we're now just over 50 minutes of this video. We need to cool down in the sense of literally and figuratively. Any comments? I see the chat line is quite busy. We have a lot of positive comments. It's thank you, I agree, we need to stand up for our children and so on. Any final comments on your side, Felicity?
There's one thing that I just would like you to maybe just clear a bit, because my understanding in this, and this is also, all the courts do different things. They interpret it and they apply the law differently. So as far as I know, is that if I go and apply for arrears, and the respondent goes, no, hang on, I'm applying for a reduction because I can't afford this. Why is it that the arrears claim is now just shelved and that the reduction becomes the priority, whether it's in criminal trial or whatever? It shifts to the reduction.
I can understand from I don't agree with the system. I can understand from a pragmatical point of view. If the party has been in arrears and is now saying, I could not have afforded to pay the child maintenance because I truly could not have afforded, therefore I'm in arrears. And now for the court now to deal with the matter as to force him to pay that arrear maintenance, what if he really can't afford it? So there must be an inquiry in place. I could understand maybe that is the potential logic they have. Because what if he doesn't have the money in the first place? And how can they force somebody who doesn't have the money to actually pay? It will cause more problems going forward. I disagree with that approach. I think it's more the maintenance courts. And I do not believe there should be a parallel between the maintenance court, the civil maintenance court, and the criminal court. There should be two separate courts. They should run concurrently, differently. So the criminal court should still do the investigation as to whether or not he was in violation of the maintenance order and follow whatever criminal procedures they can proceed with. And the civil courts still need to proceed with their specific application. So if the husband or the father, in this example, is applying for a reduction, that application should proceed because there might be merits in it. But the criminal court matter should also proceed because he committed a criminal offense. He supposedly committed a criminal offense. And therefore, if a reduction does take place, ultimately, the question still is whether or not at the time he could afford that maintenance or not. If he could have afforded it, he is criminally liable. I think it's courts.
Mohammed, my problem with that is, we see it as reactive. We know, and this is my contention, is that the Maintenance Act makes an allowance that if your circumstances change, that you need to approach the court and you have various things at your disposal. But they don't do that, And then suddenly when there is, like now you're being hauled to court for arrears, they still get preferential treatment. So I'm going, but you should not get, it doesn't matter what, I'm sorry, you should not get preferential treatment because it becomes punitive. Because you had the same options, just like the primary caregiver does, to apply for arrears, to apply for Do the labor. Do the labor. Stop sitting there with your sense of entitlement and dominance over situations, because that's how I see it. So again, yeah, well, I will dominate. I will get preference over you, and my needs will be considered before yours. And I find that wrong.
The challenge I have, Felicity, with the system is that there is too much thinking on the part of the maintenance courts, the domestic violence courts, the children's courts. They get too much involved in these type of things. The bottom line, if you're in arrears, the matter must be finalized. And I think that's the reason why sometimes the magistrates courts are so inefficient, because they get too much involved. I'm comparing to the High Court because I appear in both courts. With the High Court, it's a bus approach. 1, 2, 3, finalize. Magistrates court 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's postpone for something. We come back again. And what are they trying? Have a robust approach. If the gentleman is not paying child maintenance, what does the law say? Look at the textbook and apply that law uniformly. And I promise you, Felicity, then we will see positive results. But if a client comes to me and tells me, attorneys even come to me, attorneys tell me, Advocate Abduroaf, please, let's do this matter in the High Court, because in the children's court, we're going to wait here forever. There'll be so many postponements, so many, whatever the case may be, getting these people on board, this person on board, mediation meetings. At the end of the day, nothing really happens. Same with the maintenance court. If you're in violation of the maintenance order, finish. Criminal, guilty, whatever the penalty for that is. Non-compliance with maintenance order, garnish order immediately. Just like a simple textbook approach. A year later, 2 years later, you complied with all the order. Yes, you're welcome to apply then for a setting aside of the garnish order. I have no problem with that, because you show you are adhering to it, but not this way. Anything works.
No, but I mean, it's for me, if they're just consistent with enforcement for a period of 12 months, 24 months, the jobs will become infinitely better, because the word will get around. Don't mess with the maintenance courts. And people, just like the masks on the beach or the surfers on the beach, people will start complying, because they know that there is no mercy. And it's absolutely what you say. Too much pussyfooting and mollycoddling in the maintenance court. And I say this with all due respect, because you're dealing with such a basic fundamental right, and it's so significant that it's mentioned numerous times in our Constitution, in our Bill of Rights, in the Children's Act, in the Maintenance Act, the multitude of international agreements that we have signed, which means we agree, and this is what we're going to commit to. So it's not, it's sound. It's not about me. It's not about gender. It's about protecting the child. And whether we like it or not, we need money to protect the child, to provide shelter, food, education, all of those things. And we have to get over some of these myths that have been perpetuated around the campfires and the taverns and the soccer clubs and for so long.
But it's like, for example, there's some example like a liquor license. Why do you think no stores in South Africa, they sell liquor during the lockdown when they're not allowed to do so? You know why? And they close. You can drive down the main roads. They close because they know one violation, they lose their license.
Complicate their stock and lose their license and get arrested.
All of that, Felicity, it will happen immediately because there's consequences. So they don't even complain. They won't even complain. Felicity, I think we end up on that note. We are now 58 minutes. Thank you for your time. Felicity, stay online quickly. Let us end this webinar on the stream, and I'll check you later. But thank you for all the participants, for all the viewers, for all the comments, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.